everyone, and welcome to the Downright Upright Show, the place to go to hear out loud and proud what Minnesotans are thinking. And I am your host, Philip Anthony. Thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you're all doing fantabulous. And fantabulous is fantastic and fabulous put together twice as nice, saves time. So I had to get you to laugh because that's my thing. Anyway, so my special guest today is Anna Williams, one of the winning candidates who ran for election this past November 7th for a seat on the Rosemount-Apple Valley-Eagan School Board at Large for District 196 in Minnesota. And that seat is, are you have to run again now next year too for that seat?
Nope, it's 4-year term.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Oh my God, I was hoping you'd say that because I can't go through this again. It's too much drama for me.
Well, it'll be another 2 years before the next group. So it's staggered.
Yes.
And so, it'll be 2 years from now.
Some run and some,
Yep.
How many are all together on that?
7.
Oh, I see. That's why.
And it's pretty standard to have 7.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Are you excited?
I am excited. I actually really am excited. I'm ready to. I run a start today, actually, and I've kind of been doing some things to reach out to community members. But I'm super excited, and I'm so proud for our district. I'm so proud of our district. Really,
I am too. Yeah. And I, like I said before on a couple of shows, when I moved to that district, it was red as an apple. Is that red or fire engine? I don't know, but now it's as blue as the sky. Anyway, welcome to the Downright Upright Show, Anna.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here.
I'm so glad you came, and it's so great to finally meet you. I heard so much about you from other people that we have networked. We have the same network.
We do. That was surprising.
Yeah. Isn't it? Yeah,
it is.
So before we talk about your career in politics, which is very short at this point.
Yes.
Would you tell our audience where you were born, raised, went to school, and any related memories of that time that that would be interesting to hear about?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I am what I would call a first-gen Minnesotan. My dad is from Washington, D.C., and my mother is from Appleton, Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
They met in Rochester, I want to say back in 1968. Incidentally, a year before then, the Supreme Court had dismantled the anti-miscegenation laws in the United States. And so when my parents met, it was actually legal for them to travel. When they met and got married, it was legal for them to travel now to all 50 states in the United States. If they had met 2 years previous and gotten married, they could only travel in 10 states legally without being thrown into jail. So that's just kind of the backdrop where my parents at the time. They met in Rochester, and Minnesota, right? Not New York, Minnesota.
Okay.
And then we ended up settling in South Minneapolis around when I was 5 years old. We had moved back to DC and then came back to Minnesota and grew up in aging, blue collar, middle class neighborhood in South Minneapolis. And I had an older brother. And we both attended Catholic schools. I did.
Me too.
I actually.
That's why we turned out the way we did.
I actually loved my Catholic school experience.
No, I did too. It was all right.
Oh, I did too. It was all right.
It's all right.
Yeah, I believed you. That was all right. I sort of believe you.
Well, if you haven't heard about I talk about this on my show. I was picked on a lot as a kid. I was one of those gay boys, and the kids were very mean to me. So that's the bad experience. But the teachers were pretty decent. But
good.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you didn't. No, I love this. Yeah, I would say that my Catholic schools were very influential in my life. And I went to some pretty liberal Catholic schools. Talking to other people who have gone to Catholic schools, I think my experience was really unique. And so I went to an old school called Holy Name in St. Helena's. They're probably still out there somewhere in Minneapolis. And then I went to Regina, which was an all-girls school for 2 years, my 8th grade and 9th grade year in Minneapolis. Yep. And then you went to an all-boys school? Yes. I loved
Severian
it.
High School
Severian.
in Severian. It was the number one Catholic school in the tri-state area, from what I heard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And look where you are today because of that education.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I had a good education. I did. I have to say
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
With all the the nonsense I had to deal with. Other than that, my teachers were very good.
Good.
And so I think I got a
I
one.
think you turned out well.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
You're so sweet, and so did you.
Thanks.
Yeah. This is the
Yes.
Mutual Admiration
I know,
Society
right?
here.
Let's stroke each other's ego.
Yes.
No, and then I ended up going to Cretan-Durham Hall because the girls' school closed down in, I want to say, 1986.
Uh-huh.
70, 78, 80, yeah, 86. And so then I ended up going to Cretan-Durham Hall with a lot of former Regina students as well. And what I loved about my education is we had religion class every day. I mean, that was just a given, and they throw mass in there periodically,
Right.
which was you had to attend. But we studied other religions, and it wasn't just Christian religions. We studied world religions, and I so appreciated that. And it wasn't from a judgment standpoint. It wasn't from an evaluation. It was understanding values and ethics and religious influences from across the world. And I think that really helped give me more understanding and compassion and empathy and curiosity around different religions, and even understanding the continuum of Christianity in general, that Catholicism isn't the end all to be all. And it was really helpful in my life, from going to college and having an English major and interacting with different people, which is what I do in my work. It was fantastic. I really appreciated it. But I did not send my kids to Catholic schools.
You didn't.
I did not. The schools in my husband and I, when we met, we decided to come to District 196, which is Eagan, Apple Valley, and Rosemount. Rosemount-Apple, Valley-Eagan is the right way to say it. Because the public
Is there an
schools
order?
There is. I always mix it up. I start with
Does it go
Eagan.
by population or
I don't know.
area? What's the order?
Maybe
Eagan.
it's Rosemount-Apple, Valley-Eagan.
Why are we last?
I don't know. I mean, it feels like it should be Apple Valley, Eagan, Rosemount, or Eagan, because that's where I live. So I feel like Eagan should go first.
Yeah.
If I'm going to center myself in this scenario, I feel like it should.
I don't even know which of those three towns has the biggest population. I wouldn't even know. I'm very bad with
population size and statistics.
Yeah.
I looked it up a couple of years ago, and I know it's changing. I know Rosemount is expanding quite a bit. There's a lot of new construction going on and development, and but I want to, you know what? I'm not even going to put the numbers out there because I want to be accurate. I don't know.
Well, you'll learn along the way.
Oh, sure, I will.
Yeah,
I'm putting a cheat sheet together of all the statistics that I need to know or should know.
Leave a little check mark in your brain. We have to find out which area has the most people.
I will today.
Today, yes. So in a previous life, you were a teacher, a substitute teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I used to teach ESL, by the way.
You did?
That was my first, when I was in college. Yeah.
Wow.
You needed a certain amount of credits and to teach English as a second language. It was a private school. It wasn't a public.
Yes. So
can you give us some examples of how that experience prepares you for your new position, being a school board member? Because, you were there.
Right.
And through experience what it's like to be a teacher and how you can help students and teachers.
Yes.
In your new position.
Yeah. So I decided I was in between jobs at the time. I had left the safari company that I had been working with. And I took about a year off, and I went to a parent meeting that the current superintendent had developed. And the HR director came in and talked about this need for substitute teachers struggling with subs, and just kind of had a call to action. If you know anyone, or even maybe you might consider being a substitute teacher. And I thought, yeah, I can do that. I would love that.
What grades did you teach?
Everything.
Really?
So you can do
the
K through 12.
Gamut.
Yeah, you can do K through 12. I got a, I think it's called a PSLB or PLSB. PSL B, I think it is. I can't remember the acronym. Anyway,
I'm terrible with
I am
acronyms.
too. And
Yeah,
there's so
awful.
many acronyms in the education system. It's like a second language. And
There's
so
acronyms
I
everywhere.
know.
My nerves are shot. I can't deal with acronyms.
I'm always
Just say
getting
what
them
it
messed
is.
up. I
Just
know,
say it.
which was what my experience was
Yeah.
when I first got involved. Was people would be talking and they'd put out these acronyms, and I'd be trying to figure out in my brain, what does that mean? And I would
Yeah.
just ask, I don't know what that means. Can you tell me what that acronym stands for? Anyway,
Hmm.
and I went and got my substitute license. And the first day that I taught, which was at Southview Elementary, and so nervous. I talked to my daughter who was in middle school about, she was giving me pointers on some of the best substitute teachers she's ever had and what they've done for classroom management and how they were able to build relationships really quickly with students. And she was giving me advice. And so I'm in the classroom, came super early, nerves just like racked. Like, I want to be really good at this. And I want to make sure I don't break any students or, do anything wrong. And this young girl comes in, this young Black girl comes in with braids, and she's fourth grade and she's tiny, and she walks in and her eyes just get really wide, and she has a backpack on, and she's like, "Are you our sub today?" And I said, "Yes, I'm Mrs. Williams." And she went to her desk, put down her backpack, pulled out her iPad, and took a picture of me. I'm like, "You
Oh.
took a picture of me?" I think it was the first time she's ever had a Black teacher.
Hmm.
That's what I think.
That's why representation is so important. Like
Yes.
when Ketanji Brown Jackson became a Supreme Court justice, you know
Yes.
how many little girls will say, "You know what, mommy, I want to be a judge, or I want to
Yeah.
be a lawyer, or
Yeah.
whatever." Representation is important. I don't know why people don't, get the memo. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, it is important, and I like to think that it's also important not just for Black and brown kids, but for white kids as well. It's important for all of us to see diversity, racial diversity, faith diversity, spirituality, gender orientation out there, because if we don't see that representation in different positions, we can't imagine the possibilities, and we don't know how to engage with people
Hmm.
when they take on leadership positions or when they're in positions of power. And so I always looked at it as important for all students to have various diverse identities in the classroom, and teacher roles and superintendent roles and
Principles.
principal roles and paraprofessional roles. So um, it was really touching, and I loved it. I loved how different it was from my own experience going to Catholic schools. And I'd been in the classroom with my kids before, but I was really struck by how diverse the classrooms were at Southview. A lot of Somali kids, a lot of Hispanic kids, white kids, socioeconomics. It really ran the gamut, and something I never had growing up and going to Catholic schools.
Hmm.
And so I
Oh, yeah.
love that for my kids, and especially in the work I do. This is what a lot of leaders want. They want employees and team members who know how to engage with each other respectfully and can work together,
Hmm.
and know how to respectfully navigate. And
Hmm.
so I love public education. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
It's wonderful, and how some people want to defund schools is so upsetting to me. But that's a totally different show, right?
Yeah, and that's a long, yes, yes,
It's
yes.
a
It's a
long
long,
story.
yes.
So now we're going to talk about your prior work with TB Williams Consulting, because you're
Yes.
so proud of that, and you smile and you glow whenever I bring that up.
Yes.
So I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. And it's work involving DEI,
Yes.
which is diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yep.
And what was the focus there? And can you give us some
Background.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
So my husband was the director of diversity and inclusion at Target Corporation for several years, and
Maybe we could get him to come on the show.
I think we could.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I think he would
What's his
really
name?
like that. Todd Williams. TB Williams.
Oh, he's the T and the
He's the T and the B in Williams.
I'm learning something new every day. Hi there, Todd.
It's
To
re-
wave to Todd. Where's your camera? Oh, you're
oh, hi Todd.
okay.
It's actually really cute when we go out and we do work together, and we work with clients, and we introduce ourselves, and they don't know that we're married, and so they kind of wonder, like, we might like kind of touch each other's arm or whatever, and then people are like, wait, are you married? Yes, we're married. It's kind of funny. No, so we got together after he left Target. He had been kicking around the idea of going into consulting, and I really wanted to support him in that consulting work. And I had already been very interested in diversity and inclusion, partly because he would come home and talk about what he's doing in the company. And I'd worked for Target a long time ago too, when we first met and got married, and I'd left after we had kids. But I was really, really interested in um, what diversity meant, how to create more inclusive environments, and really struggling with even having, not always feeling in the right comfortable in certain situations, even though I had grown up around predominantly white family members and friends and schools. I always kind of felt like an outsider, and I always thought there was something wrong with me. And talking to my husband about his work, and then he would give me books to read, and I kind of realized that, oh, this sentiment I feel is actually, it impacts lots of different people, and not just Black people or brown people. It's, we all sometimes can feel like we're outsiders looking in.
Exactly.
And so how do we create environments where no one has to feel like an outsider, where no one has to feel uncomfortable or be afraid of being rejected, or just shame, and feel like they have to mask parts of their identity. And so we kind of talked about, when we developed the company, how we can help companies create DEI strategies. But more specifically, where I ended up really soaring is working with executive leaders and doing advising around diversity, equity, inclusion. So building leaders' DEI acumen, creating relationships, individual relationships where we can talk about particular issues where they're uncomfortable with, or they want to talk about, but they might not have a racially diverse friend or a family member they can talk to, and they don't want to damage relationships at work. And so creating really these comfortable, safe spaces where they can bring up concerns, they can ask questions like, why is it, why is it okay for, why shouldn't people have to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which is one of the questions we got. Why do we have to talk about race so much? And, or, I'm struggling with LGBTQ, and it's against my
Religion.
religious values. And so what we talk about, we kind of dig into those conversations, and there's a lot of things that I do. I develop curriculum around it too, to just really start with themselves first. Let's talk about your identity, right? And a lot of times, many white men and women don't realize they have multiple identities. Some of them are dominant identities, and some of them are not dominant identities. And so we start there first. So to get them to see that, yes, race is a identity, but it's not the sum total of all our identities. And so getting them to see, first of all, how to think about identities and diversity beyond just race, and to see where they show up.
Mm.
And so I get really excited about it, because this is where you can move people to feel more comfortable about talking about these topics and understanding their culture and themselves better. And so they have a foundation for understanding better other cultures, and then navigating those cultures more effectively. So that's what I get really excited about.
Hmm. I'm going to piggyback on that
Yeah,
question that
good.
I just asked you, because there are bills that whitewash African American
Hmm.
history, that promote the growing anti-CRT movement, anti-LGBT
Hmm.
bills, book bans.
Hmm.
I can go on and on.
Hmm.
It's nauseating. Is that the word? Nauseating? Yeah.
Nauseating.
Nauseating.
Sounded good.
Yeah, all right. But
Tomato, tomato.
you say to me, yeah.
Right?
They're being introduced and passed in some states actually
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Luckily, thank you, Minnesota. Again, we always thank Minnesota
Yes.
for being a sanctuary state for LGBT, for
Yes.
African American
Yes.
education,
Yes.
for everyone. It's an inclusive state. So as a member of the school board, how will you address these issues in
So,
the future? Because you haven't even pretty much
right.
gotten going yet.
What's my plan, you mean?
What's your plan? Yeah.
So, one of the things I'll use this example of a conversation that I had with a constituent while I was out canvassing in Apple Valley, and I talked to a constituent who was in their 60s and very nice man, more conservative. Shared that with me, and we sat down and we kind of talked about his concern about some of the things he had seen on the news where schools are doing more ethnic studies and he couldn't understand why do we have to talk about so many negative things in our history. I mean, wouldn't you want to, and this was specifically around race,
Well, there
wouldn't you?
were negative things in our
Well,
history,
there
right?
was, but I think it's, again, I don't know. There's so much conversation going around history itself, and here's what I realized. I was very familiar with African American history because my father made sure I was.
Good.
Okay, so I had a
Hmm.
foundation for it.
Sure. Yep.
Not everyone has that foundation.
Hmm.
And so when they went to school, that wasn't part of their curriculum. And so it might appear that, well, we're changing history because their understanding of history has not been as inclusive. And so it can feel like this might not be true history, or that why are we talking about these
Because it
negative
wasn't
things?
taught before.
Because it wasn't taught before. So
Hmm.
it can seem, and also this idea of to add something into our curriculum means you have to take something away.
Hmm.
And so, which is that zero sum, right? Zero sum kind of mindset around information. And what I explained as we kind of talked about it, um, you know, I actually think it's okay to provide that information, because kids need to understand. Kids are resilient, and if we don't provide the bad with the good, we are not providing opportunities for our students to grapple with discomfort, to grapple with difficult conversations, to learn how to work through conflict and emotions.
Hmm.
And so I look at it as a developmental necessity, and that we want kids who can work under difficult and situations with other people. If we try to create this idea that this looking backwards at history and we only pick out the good things, we're not preparing
That's not
kids for
history.
that's not history, and we're not preparing kids for the reality of life.
Hmm.
Life is difficult. It's not always sunshine and
It's not a
rainbows.
picnic. Yeah.
No, it's not. And so, when I talked about that, I think we came to some understanding, like, that makes sense, right?
Hmm.
It's not to take away, it's to have the option for others, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that history, we should be looking back at history periodically and read, because history is constantly being made. And so we have to adapt what we do teach. I
Yes.
mean, what are we going to, like, history class is going to turn into like 2 hours because we have to go all the way back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what do we pick? What do we keep? What do we add? What do we take out?
Yeah.
And so it's constantly evolving our curriculum around it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, some states are just ridiculous about that, but that's another whole
I
show.
know, I
We could
know,
go on and on with
I
that.
know.
So, Bianca Vernig,
Yes.
yay.
Yay, Bianca. Shout out to Bianca.
Congratulations. I'm going to wave to her. She won the primary, and now
She
she's
did.
running against a Republican for the at-large seat. So
Yep.
hopefully she'll be able to win that.
Yes.
And she was recently a guest on my show.
Yes.
And we talked about the negative impacts of Moms for Liberty
Yeah.
and Parents Defending Education, and what these effects have on our children's education.
Yeah.
These dangerous organizations claim schools are indoctrinating the children and using pornographic literature in the classrooms and in the libraries of, pornography. I mean, I know what pornography looks like. Don't get the wrong impression, guys. But that's what they're saying. Could you once and for all dismiss this myth for the audience?
So here's what I encourage people to do. um, First of all, as a school board member elect, if there is an example of something that might exist, is it possible? Maybe. Is it probable? Highly unlikely. But I want to see it. So first I want evidence that it exists in our school district.
Me
That's
too.
the first thing I want. And so I'm not going to say it's never existed, it doesn't happen, but first I want someone to define what pornography means too, because how we use words is really important, and the definition you're using and examples behind that.
Hmm.
Because I grew up with a mother who was a nurse. And so we had books about the human body and development and what happens and the changes that take place. Uh, could that be? And there were pictures of men and women naked in
Yeah,
those,
that's sex
in the,
education.
right. And
Yeah.
so that's medically accurate sex education. And so that was available to me as a child. I wonder if someone would consider that to be pornography. It kind of depends on the lens. And so when people talk about pornography, I want you to define it, and I want you to give me examples of that exists.
Some people think it's two guys kissing each other.
Yeah. And that is
on the
not
lips, not on the cheek.
right. And
Ay
so,
vey.
right. And so, right. And
It's
so
awful.
I before I get into any conversation, I want people to define it for me first, and I want to see evidence
Because
of it.
everybody's definition of pornography is different.
There's a
Could be different.
continuum. It could be different. And so
Yeah.
let's start with that first, and then we
Yes.
can have a conversation. So
Totally agree.
So do I think that two men kissing is pornographic? No. That is not my definition of pornography.
No.
Do I think that medically accurate, age appropriate sexual curriculum around sexual education is
Mhm.
pornography? No.
Mhm. Someone teaching you in school how to put a condom on properly, that's some people think that's pornography. But
Again,
it's safe sex. It's
and so
preventing disease.
So when I worked with Women Winning, one of the things that I learned as I was going out and seeking endorsements, and they actually educated me that the reality is, again, it has to be age appropriate. And I am not the expert on what age appropriate is. I am not a developmental psychologist.
Mhm.
I did not go to college to be a teacher.
Right.
I'm not the expert in that area. I'm going to rely on experts around what is developmentally accurate
Absolutely.
and appropriate.
Yes.
My understanding, though, is that when you do have education, sex education that is age appropriate and medically accurate, what you're doing is you're helping kids have more body autonomy and knowing what is safe for them,
Mhm.
and being able to have more power over their own bodies so that others aren't taking advantage of them.
Mhm.
And I think that's really
Teach them
important.
appropriate touch, things like
Right.
that.
Right.
Inappropriate touch, I should say.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And so, and I think that's really important.
Yes, very
Really important.
Yeah.
So that, our vulnerable children aren't taken advantage of.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, excuse me. We had 3 elections coming in this
Yes.
past week. Just very quickly, because we're almost running out of time here. I want to get to the shift. We'll talk about the shift later.
Okay.
What do you think of that? Why can't they just consolidate these elections? Why do they have to be spread? I have to go out 3 different times and vote. I
know.
voted once for you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you for that vote.
I did. Well, come on, look at you. You're amazing. And Bianca's election. And now
Yes.
we have to vote for Bianca's and her opponent.
in the general election.
For the general election.
So this is interesting for me. So I am not I'm not a politician as a career. This is something I just kind of I don't want to say stumbled into, but where my life has been taking me the last 5 years. And so I just started learning what a primary was. I'm 51 years old and I didn't know.
Oh, really?
And so what I am finding out as I've been going out and door knocking for Bianca as well, that a lot of people don't know what a primary is. I'm not the only one.
Right,
I'm just more apt to say it.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty normal. A lot of people just aren't engaged and they don't really understand the process. So once Ruth Richardson, who as our
Vacated
Minnesota
the
rep,
seat, yeah.
vacated the seat, they apparently didn't wanted to make enough time for the people who are interested to start campaigning because they needed a primary.
Mhm.
And so the timeline just did not happen to run adjacent to the school board election. And so, yeah, people I think are kind of confused. I was a little confused until I kind of saw it in my brain. I don't know why it happened so soon afterwards or why it couldn't happen sooner. That was determined by our Governor Waltz. But here's what is. So the primary was really just to kind of decide who was going to be the captain of the DFL for the DFL party, who was going to be on the general election ticket. And that's really what it was. And so very low voter turnout.
But she won anyway.
But she won, which is exciting. I'm so excited for
it. Yeah.
I'm excited for B52, which is Eagan, Mendota Heights, I think and Inver Grove Heights. I'm excited because to have someone who has school board, who's been on the school board for our district and now to potentially be a legislator in our Minnesota House, it's going to be fantastic for our families and our students here in District 96.
Yeah. Now,
yeah.
Guess what?
What?
We've come to the part of the show.
Oh, there's a part? Okay.
Yeah.
Wait. Wait a second.
Strap in.
I'm strapped in.
Now we've come to the part of the show I like to call the shift.
The shift.
So make sure you say the F, otherwise we have problems. The shift.
The shift.
Yes, where we shift the questioning.
Okay.
Away from your personal journey.
Okay.
And to your opinions on current events.
Got it.
So now it's just divorce it could connect into your personal journey, but we just want your opinions on certain things. It's kind of like a lightning round.
Sure.
So
quick fire.
Yeah. But you could elaborate, because we don't, we still have a little time left. Yeah. But I'm picking your brain basically.
All right.
Okay.
All right. That's some scary stuff there.
I'll stop. You're amazing. So as you already know, House and Senate Republicans are becoming increasingly violent and amping up their vitriol towards not only Democrats, by the way, but also to their fellow Republicans. What must be done to lower the temperature between these parties? How can we get them to behave like adults?
I think that we need to give them less media time because I really do think that this is show.
Yeah.
This is showmanship.
Yeah.
Show personship.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. And I think it feeds some of it's entertainment. And I do not think politics should be entertaining. It can be very addicting it's like watch. I don't know. I grew up at the time of World Wrestling. WWF, I think, World Wrestling, long time ago back in the 80s. And we knew it was kind of fake, but it was still entertaining because you had characters. And I kind of get the sense that some of these people have cultivated a character that they like to show off. And it really inspires people to get engaged, not always politically, I don't want to say politically correct, but in the most effective way, but it does engage people from an entertainment perspective. I say less media coverage.
Yeah. Well,
honestly.
My input in this would be that we're in an age, when I grew up, we weren't in the age of social media. There was no social media. TV, Walter Cronkite. That's all you had.
Yes, I remember.
Eric Severai, those people.
Yes.
Now people are trying to get clicks on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it at this point. Facebook, Instagram, whatever media you use.
Right.
And the more outlandish you are against the Democrats, because Democrats are not really threatening to punch people or elbow them like McCarthy.
Mark Wayne. Yeah.
Well, that one,
McCarthy. That was an interesting
McCarthy took an elbow to someone in his kidneys.
Yeah.
Which to me is, I'm surprised he's out of jail because that's assault.
It is assault.
And then Mark Wayne, Mullen, a senator, he's a senator, not even a congressman, was having a committee hearing with, I think it was the leader of one of the unions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I'm not sure which
I can't remember his name.
Maybe Brett could interject on what union it is.
I don't remember the union either, but that was quite the video of the
guy.
Did you
see that?
Spitting in his hands before he goes.
He gets up like he's, and then Bernie Sanders.
I love Bernie in that moment. He was amazing.
Sit down. You're
a U.S. senator. Sit down.
Sit down. Act like a senator. Sit down.
No. Not in here.
I love him. He is the best. And so So it was kind of like WWF.
It really
And it was
was.
frightening because I'm,
Which,
you know,
interestingly, I think
yeah.
Mark Wayne was a WWF
you know,
character. I
you
think
are
he,
absolutely right. I think you're right. Yeah.
yes. And so I
Mhm.
kind of wondered, where did entertainment, reality hits entertainment? It was really, it was amusing to watch.
Oh,
And
it's shocking.
if I was 16 years old in a high school, I probably would have loved to see that happen and would have
Yeah.
encouraged it. But as adults, I just think, wow, there are some very dysregulated people out there,
Oh my
and you
God.
cannot contain your emotions. And it was just really it was interesting to watch. And I just think, wow, I'm okay with being expressive. I'm okay with showing anger. Um, the whole, like, let's take it outside and we'll settle it
Yeah,
there, was
that's
really
crazy.
ridiculous and kind of comical. And I think it had the opposite effect for me. I just thought, really,
Right.
really.
Yeah.
But again, when I say less media coverage, and here we are talking about it.
Uh-huh.
Here it is on the news. Here it's been, I mean, Stephen Colbert talked about it, all the late night shows did. And so we're part of the problem though, too, right? I mean, we're consuming it and then we're talking about it. I think we have
Because
to,
it's so out of the ordinary,
and
I
then,
think, right?
right, until something, and then the next time it happens, it has to be more out of the ordinary. And it just keeps amping up. And I think we just have to start ignoring it and not talking about it
Yeah.
and not giving it any time,
Yeah.
so that people will
Okay, so we'll not
stop.
give it any more time.
All
then.
right. I mean, it is interesting to watch, but yeah, I think we need to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so just behave, people.
Behave.
Be good.
It's not okay.
Bad.
Everything
yeah.
you needed to learn, you learned in kindergarten.
They didn't get disciplined as children, I think, these people.
Yes.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene and et al, as I say.
Oh,
Okay,
MGT.
so now
MTJ.
I'd like you to comment on the following quote from Speaker Mike Johnson, or who I like to call Trump's Little Johnson. And I have to thank John Fugelsang for that one. You like that one? Trump's Little Johnson.
Minnie Johnson.
Minnie Johnson. Yeah. Okay, so this is a quote. Yeah. Here's this quote. The separation of church and state is a misnomer. People misunderstand it. Of course, it comes from a phrase that Jefferson wrote. It's not in the Constitution. And what he was explaining is they did not want the government to encroach upon the church. Not that they didn't want principles of faith to have influence on our public life. It's exactly the opposite. Your thoughts?
I
That's
guess
what he said.
I'm tired of being gaslit. I'm tired of being told, first of all, that I can't. I mean, my understanding, and I'm a history nerd. I'm not an expert in history, but half of our founding fathers, if that's the term we use, believe that there should be a separation of church and state. And part of that was because of how much influence the Catholic Church and the English Church had on the monarchy and had on leadership. And they wanted that to be separate.
Yeah.
And so to tell me that, no, you're not, what you're reading and what you learned, nope, that didn't really happen, is gaslighting. And I hate that. The fact that even when the speaker speaks and we are giving so much, again, attention to misinformation and falsehoods is problematic. And if you say things, what does it take? 7 times for someone to hear something before it kind of sticks? There are people out there who believe this. I mean, Lauren Boebert said the same thing.
Well, they want a theocracy.
Right. And it goes back to, well, okay, so let's say you have a theocracy. Whose version of Christianity is going to be the lead in this country? Whose version?
I don't know.
You tell me.
Spin the wheel. I don't know.
Yeah. And so whose
be
version of the Bible? Whose version of Christianity? Ask yourself that question, because once you start digging into it, which again, I went to Catholic schools, and so we studied other Christian faiths as well. Who's going to win? Who's going to duke it out on the floor?
Yeah. Well,
and then we're all going to follow that. What happens if you're Jewish? What happens if you are Muslim? What happens if you are Hindu? What happens if you're Sikh? Honestly, atheist, right? Agnostic.
Yeah.
So what happens?
If a little child, I just want to know something. If a child is in a classroom and they start praying to Jesus in the classroom, and then you have Jewish kids in there and even atheist kids who would feel like, what the hell's going on here?
Mhm.
Are we supposed to learn,
Mhm.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G instead of like, the Bible?
Mhm.
Because I don't believe in the Bible. So that would be against my beliefs.
Mhm.
Aren't we supposed to be like going back to diversity and inclusion? You want to include everyone, not exclude certain people. That's the whole idea of this country.
Right. And so that's why you can't have one particular theology in the classroom. Now, if a student, there are opportunities for students, regardless of their faith, to have faith-based groups in the schools.
Mhm.
It's not something you can do in the classroom, but you can have spaces for that. The
Mhm.
schools aren't against that. It's just indoctrinating kids on a specific theology is indoctrination. So when people talk about indoctrination, if you look at the word indoctrination in general, we are being indoctrinated into democratic values. I mean, that's part of the purpose of public education. We're being indoctrinated into what it means to be a good citizen
Mhm.
and civilian and be productive. And so, yes, there is indoctrination going on, but we are not indoctrinating kids to love particular partners. We are not, that partners that are outside of what they think is normal, what some people think is normal. We are
Mhm.
not indoctrinating students to hate the United States. We're giving them information. And we are providing opportunities for them to engage with other students and to develop their understanding. And then those students can come home and talk to their parents, and their parents can also provide them information.
Mhm.
Isolating our
Amen.
kids from information so that because it goes against a particular family's values, that's just not the way public education works.
Right,
Now,
right.
you have a right as a family to talk about what's important to you. And I actually encourage that
Mhm.
instead of saying you can't teach that in school because it doesn't reflect my values or
Mhm.
my voice. That's not the way it works.
Well, the difference between us and them,
Yeah,
and I hate the us and them
I
thing,
know.
but I just want to say it to, put this on the table here. We're inclusive. They seem to be exclusive. Because if you want to bring church and state together, you will be excluding people. You're not including everyone
Right.
unless you want to have a multi faith, uh, uh, which would be a hodgepodge of things, and kids have enough trouble confusion with their own religion. So pick up on that for a second.
So, what I'll tell you is that, and I want to say that this is something that just Republicans do or conservatives do, because I actually do think that there is an us and them mentality. Again, in diversity work, we talk about different mindsets around diversity. And so,
Mhm.
how we think about difference and the subsequent strategies we use to navigate those differences. And so, polarization is a particular mindset. And in
Mhm.
polarization, we put people in buckets. You're either with me or against me, you're either us or them. And that happens uh, frequently in different political ideologies among Democrats and liberals and progressives. The main point, though, is inclusion doesn't mean that I have to adopt your worldview. I don't have to adopt or celebrate your worldview.
Mhm.
It means that I have to respect your worldview, that I need
Thank you,
to.
Aretha.
RPC to ETP. Anyway,
I agree
that's what it
100%.
is.
Yes.
And so, but when you start saying this is the ideal and the primary way that we have to engage, and that it has to be based on a limited group of people, that is no longer inclusive. And because everything else is wrong, that's not inclusion. And so, yeah, I don't want people to change their faith
Not at
at
all.
all. You get to practice your faith. We will provide opportunities in our school district for your students to come together and find their tribe.
Yes.
It cannot happen. It cannot be from teachers. It cannot be from administrators, and it cannot be from adults. It has to be driven by the students outside of the classroom,
Right.
just like we do for Somali students.
Right.
They have places where they can go pray during Ramadan,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Recognize humanity.
Right? Recognize
That's the
it.
whole thing. Recognize.
But you cannot proselytize and try to and turn someone else to faith.
And say that they're wrong because they're a different religion
That's different.
or a different color or
Yes.
blase.
And I think we do that. I don't want to get into the semantics around more conservatives do it or less Dems do it. I see it
Yeah,
a lot.
that's true.
I do see it a lot. And so the challenge is to stop evaluating and judging people, and just learning to understand what's been influencing them, how do they get to that, and give it, learning more about that person.
But I still think that we are more inclusive as a people, as Democrats, because I recognize everyone. Maybe I'm speaking personally. I hate to maybe use a generalization, but I when I look at a person, I look at that person, and I like you, I don't like you, you're a jerk, you're not a jerk, Anyway, so the last question. Oh, we got 4 minutes. What are your thoughts about the so-called new code of ethics proposed by the Supreme Court justices themselves, but says absolutely nothing about the consequences if someone breaks the rules? Shouldn't the Supreme Court have the same code of ethics as the lower courts do?
Yes. That was easy.
Wasn't that easy?
Yes.
Because he's accepting, I say he, but a lot of them, Clarence Thomas, Alito, and even one of the Democrats, Sotomayor, was, going on trips and taking money from influencers.
When you have a culture of corruption, it will impact. It's hard not to fall into that corruption.
Yeah.
And it can transcend political lines.
Yeah.
And so, we need to have a code of ethics, and there needs to be consequences behind it.
Thank you. And that's why I think the Congress has to step in and do it. Because if the fox is watching the hen house, there's not going to be any chickens left. Anyway, but moving right along, we're getting to the end of the show. So
That's
before
so fast. I want to stay here longer.
Did you have fun?
I did, and it happened too fast. And
Come to the Downright Upright show if you're out there and you're listening.
Yes.
Anyway, so I just want to end this on a really happy note. Is there anything positive that you're looking forward to doing as a member of the school board?
I'm really looking forward to meeting with constituents from all backgrounds.
Isn't that a great thing?
Really,
Yeah.
I am. And
talking to people and picking their brain. Yeah.
And I really want to encourage people to reach out to me. They can reach out to me on Anna Williams, FOR196.com, and they can or at Anna Williams FOR196 at gmail.com. Let's talk.
Yeah.
I am here to represent all constituents. Doesn't mean that we have to agree on everything, but I will listen. I absolutely will listen.
Yeah.
And just ask for patience and grace, and let's be respectful to each other. But I really try to live by that.
That's a perfect answer for listening. Just because when you're in politics, you have constituents and they have concerns, and they want to tell their politicians, don't close them off I have my people that are funding me, I'm going to listen to them. No, you listen to the people that you are representing.
And we have to listen to all voices.
Exactly.
All voices.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, anyway, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show. We have
Can't believe
an hour and 48 minutes, a minute and 46 seconds. So thank you so much, Anna, for being a guest on the Downright Upright show. I hope you enjoyed it. Would you like to come back someday?
I would love to come back someday, please.
I know you will.
That would be great.
I will make it happen.
Make it happen.
Right, Brett? We're going to make it happen.
Absolutely.
And maybe we can actually bring a couple of constituents who have some different thoughts around some things.
Oh my
and
God,
bring them,
great
and
to
we
have
can be a group that comes and have a forum, because I think that would be great.
That's a good, thank you. Because I think I mentioned this with Brett when we were talking about the show. I never had an opposition to my views on my show. I've never had anybody say, no, I don't agree with that. I don't like this. I don't like that. And I think maybe that would be, and I would love to listen. I'm not disrespectful. I will not get off my seat and spit in my hand and get ready to, I would.
You aren't going to ask someone to take it outside?
Let's take it out. No, I would not. That's not my personality. If you know me, Anna, that's not me. Anyway, so for more information about Anna Williams, you can go to AnnaWilliamsFor196.com. And also tvwilliamsconsulting.com for Anna's DEI business and her husband.
Yes.
Well, you can't leave the husband out.
No, can't leave him out.
And your husband's name is?
Todd.
Hi, Todd.
Todd with two Ds.
Well, Todd with two Ds. Bye, Todd. You're going to come on my show too. Anyway, and to the audience, thank you for spending time with us today. And please look out for more of the Downright Upright show in the future. And it's on am950radio.com/events/Philip with 1L. Finally, thank you for supporting the Downright Upright show with your clicks and all your support. So I love you. Take care.
Mwah.
Ciao for now.
Ciao.